For many people in the West, for a very long time, Africa meant darkness, savagery, and chaos. This image did not come from nowhere. It came from books, and one of the most influential books was Joseph Conrad's Heart of Darkness, published in 1899. Conrad's novel tells the story of a white man named Marlowe who travels up the Congo River. He is searching for another white man named Coots who has gone mad with power. Along the way, Marlowe sees African people, but he does not describe them as individual human beings. He describes them as shadows, shapes, and black shadows of disease and starvation. He calls their language the short, savage bark of a wild animal. He says their face are like grotesque masks. For almost 60 years, this was the dominant image of Africa in Western literature. A place without history, a place without culture, and a place where people lived in a kind of madhouse frenzy. Then in 1958, Chinua Achebe published Things Fall Apart. Achebe was a member of the Igbo people, one of the largest ethnic groups in Nigeria. He had read Heart of Darkness as a student. He was angry not because Conrad was a bad writer, Conrad was a brilliant writer, but because Conrad's vision of Africa was a lie. It was a lie told by a man who had never tried to understand African people as full human beings. So Achebe decided to write the counter narrative. He would tell the story from the inside. He would show the world what Igbo society looked like before the colonizers arrived. He would show its laws, its rituals, families, art, and its deep humanity. Let us begin with Achebe's essay, An Image of Africa, published in 1975. In this essay, Achebe directly criticizes Conrad. Conrad relies on a simple binary. A binary is a pair of opposites. For Conrad, the binary is Europe versus Africa. Europe is civilized, rational, and good. Africa is savage, instinctual, and evil. One is light and the other is dark. It is not just a matter of opinion, it is a structural feature of Conrad's novel. Marlowe describes the Congo River as a snake. He describes the jungle as a place of darkness. He describes the African people as part of the darkness. They are not characters, they are scenery. Conrad denies African people three things. First, he denies them individual names. They are not called Okongo or Unoko or Ikemefuna. They are called cannibals and savages. Second, he denies them speech. When they speak, their words are not translated, they are just noise. Third, he denies them history. They have no past, no traditions, no culture. They exist only in the present as a threat to the white man's journey. Achebe calls this racism, but he is careful. Conrad was a product of his time. He was not unusually evil. He was simply unable to imagine African people as fully human. This is what makes the novel dangerous. It does not shout its racism, it whispers it, it assumes it, and makes it seem natural. Achebe's response was not just to write an essay, it was to write a novel. He would show the truth. Things Fall Apart is set in the late 19th century. It tells the story of a village called Umofia in southeastern Nigeria. The main character is a man called Okongo. Achebe begins the novel not with colonizers but with a detailed description of Igbo life. He shows us the yam harvest. Yams are the most important crop. A man's wealth and status are measured by how many yams he grows. He shows us the wrestling matches. Wrestling is how young men prove their strength and earn respect. He shows us the village court. The elders sit together. They listen to disputes, they make decisions based on custom and consensus. He shows us the religion. The Igbo believe in a high god named Chukwu. They also believe in many lesser gods and spirits. They make offerings, they consult oracles, they honor their ancestors. He shows us the art. The Igbo carve beautiful masks. They use them in ceremonies, they tell stories through dance and song. All of this is a direct answer to Conrad. Conrad said Africa had no civilization. Achebe shows us a civilization. Conrad said African life was a chaos. Achebe shows us order. Conrad said African people were shadows. Achebe gives them names, families, and histories. Early in the novel, a man from a neighboring village kills a woman in Umofia. To avoid war, the killer's village offers a young man named Ikimefuna as compensation. The elders of Umofia accept this is not a random violence, this is a system of justice. It has rules, consequences, and logic. Achebe does not say the system is perfect, he shows its flaws. He shows that innocent people can suffer under it. He insists that it is a system, it is not the madhouse frenzy of Conrad's imagination. Achebe also points out a great irony. At the same time that Europeans were calling African societies savage, African art was revolutionizing European painting. In the early 20th century, artists like Pablo Picasso and Braque discovered African masks. They were amazed by the abstract shapes, the bold lines, and the powerful expressions. They began to imitate this style. It became known as Cubism. So while Conrad was describing African faces as grotesque masks in his novel, European painters were stealing those same masks to create modern art. The Africans were primitive when it was convenient, but their art was genius when it could be taken and renamed. Achebe does not mention this by accident. He wants us to see the hypocrisy. The colonizers took African land, African labor, and African art. They gave nothing back, not even respect. Now let us turn to the main character of Things Fall Apart. Okongo is a man of great strength and ambition. He is a famous wrestler and has 3 wives. He has many arms. He is a leader in his village. But Okongo has a problem. He is terrified of being weak. His father Unoka was a gentleman who loved music and conversation. He did not like to fight. He died in a death with no titles. Okongo swore he would never be like his father. He would be hard, he would be strong, and would never show emotion. This is a classic tragic flaw. Okongo's strength is also his weakness. His fear of weakness makes him cruel. When the oracle says that Ikemefuna, the boy who has been living with him, must be killed, the elders tell Okongo not to participate. But Okongo is afraid of being seen as soft. So he picks up his mache and kills the boy himself. This is the first crack in his armor. He cannot sleep for days. He is haunted. Later, during a funeral, Okongo's gun accidentally explodes and kills a young boy. This is an accident, but in Igbo custom, even an accident must be punished. Okongo and his family are exiled for 7 years. Notice what Achebe is doing here. He is showing us a man who is destroyed not by colonizers, but by his own culture. The tragedy begins from within. This is important. Achebe is not saying that Igbo culture is perfect. He is saying it is human. Humans make mistakes. Humans have flaws. Humans suffer. Halfway through the novel, the colonizers arrive. First come the missionaries, then come the British administrators. Achebe presents us with 2 very different missionaries. The first is Mr. Brown. Mr. Brown is patient. He respects Igbo culture even as he tries to convert it. He listens. He learns their language. He builds a school and a hospital. He does not try to destroy the village. He tries to win it over slowly. The second missionary is Reverend James Smith. Smith is rigid. He sees Igbo religion as evil. He will not compromise. He insults the village gods. He encourages his converts to be aggressive. Under Smith's leadership, a zealous Christian convert unmasks an Igugu. The Igugu are masked spirits who represent the ancestors. They are the highest authority in the village court. Unmasking one is a terrible sacrilege. The village responds by burning down the Christian church. The district commissioner, a British official, responds by arresting the village leaders, including Okongo. He humiliates them. He shaves their heads. He holds them for ransom. When they are released, the village holds a meeting to decide whether to fight back. Okongo believes they must. He kills a messenger sent by the district commissioner, but no one else follows him. The clan has lost its will to resist. Okongo sees that his world has fallen apart. He hangs himself. The title Things Fall Apart comes from W.B. Yeats's The Second Coming. The poem says, things fall apart, the sender cannot hold, mere anarchy is loosed upon the world. Achebe borrows these words to describe the destruction of Igbo society under colonialism. The sender is not just Okongo, the sender is the whole system of beliefs, laws, and customs that held the village together. When the sender breaks, anarchy is loosed. But notice the irony. Conrad said Africa was always anarchic. Achebe says no. It was ordered. It became anarchic only when the colonizers came and broke it. The novel ends with a devastating scene. The district commissioner is sitting in his office. He is writing a book. He plans to call it The Pacification of the Primitive Tribes of the Lower Niger. He thinks about Okongo's death. He says it is not very important. He will devote only one paragraph to it, a reasonable paragraph. This is the colonial gaze in action. Okongo was a great man. He was a wrestler, a warrior, leader, father, and a tragic hero. But to the district commissioner, he is just a primitive tribesman who killed himself, a footnote and a curiosity. Achebe is showing us that colonial writing is a form of violence. It does not just conquer land, it conquers stories. It tells the world that African lives do not matter, that African history does not exist, African grief is not worth recording. By writing Things Fall Apart, Achebe refuses this violence. He tells Okongo's story in full. He gives him dignity, he makes us feel his tragedy. Things Fall Apart was published in 1958. That is more than 60 years ago. It has been translated into more than 50 languages. It has sold millions of copies. It is taught in schools all over the world. Why does it still matter? Because the colonial gaze has not disappeared. It has just changed shape. Today we will see stereotypes of Africa as a place of war, poverty, and disease. We still see African people reduced to victims or villains in Western news and entertainment. We still hear voices that deny African humanity. Achebe's novel is a weapon against this. It is a reminder that every people has a story, every culture has a system, and every person has a name. When you write, remember Okongo, remember the district commissioner's paragraph, and ask yourself, whose story am I telling? Am I telling it from the inside or the outside? Am I giving my characters the dignity they deserve? If you can answer these questions honestly, you will be a better writer. You will be a more thoughtful human being, and you will be carrying on the work that Chinua Achebe began. Thank you.